Hello, it's great to have all of you back in the studio with us. Today we will be taking up the subject entitled Attitudes Towards the Inevitable. I'm in the studio with Sister Denise, who is sharing with us her wisdom and insight that she has gained from practicing Raja Yoga meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for over 45 years. Hello and welcome, Sister Denise.
Hello, Magla. Thank you.
Attitude Towards the Inevitable. I must say I found the title somewhat curious. What do you mean by inevitable?
There are certain things that are inevitable, like aging.
Oh, what came to mind is death and taxes.
Yes, I know, but everybody knows that already.
Okay. Yeah.
But getting old, getting slower, it's inevitable that there will be people in your lives who will not be there after a while. Maybe they'll go, maybe they'll die. There's many things that happen. We have to come to terms with the temporariness of many things that we assume are permanent. You feel you have a permanent abode, you have a permanent job, you have a permanent relationship. So we tend to get into this idea that this is permanent, nothing's going to happen, but it might, it could, eventually it will. Death is the big one that everybody points towards as the inevitable, but yet people avoid the subject a great deal. It's pretty rare for somebody to get through their entire life without getting ill. So we have to assume that there are going to be challenges. It's inevitable that there will be challenges, and one fine day we will have to leave the body. It could be in your sleep, it could be by an accident, it could be by an illness, it could be a long slow thing, it could be something quick, but we have to think about these things in advance so that we come to terms with them. Even very often you know something is inevitable, but you're still very engaged with it, emotionally attached to it, and then you have to just know that, okay, this is going to hurt, and be prepared for that. There are some things that occur and you see the trend that inevitably a business is going to fail, is just not going to be able to turn around, and so you have to deal with that. I think this topic is to get us to not have false hopes about certain things. Very often we think that, you know, if I just do certain things, then other people will change. It's unlikely. You know, it's very rare that you can change a person. A person is the way they are. If they decide they will change, then they will decide they will change, and what they will change, and if they will change, and so on. There are trends that you can see, and you need to understand that this trend is going in this direction. Take something that is alarming a lot of people, climate change. It's affecting everyone, and directly, because it's affecting the agriculture, it's affecting food production, it's affecting jobs, it's affecting habitat, it's affecting the existence or non-existence of low-lying islands and territories. It's creating extreme weather, and so it is inevitable that the process of climate change is going to continue in its own direction. It's inevitable that there's going to be great scarcity of water, even though the sea level is rising, but fresh water is declining. It's inevitable that with all the huge storms that are happening in the sun, that one fine day is going to have a huge impact on the internet and break it down, and there's nothing anybody can do about that. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that the problem of overpopulation is going to produce civil disturbances along with food shortages. The political instability in many areas is going to produce a decline in the quality of life, greater competitiveness for jobs and space. It's inevitable that our quality of life is going to decline.
Okay, so what you've just enunciated is something that most people cannot or refuse to think about because it scares them.
Well,
these are questions to which most people do not have answers.
Well, I don't think we can get answers. We can do our best to prepare ourselves for different kinds of inevitable things externally, but we also have to prepare ourselves internally. We need to develop resilience to change, to disturbances, to destabilized infrastructures. I think we do need to think about these things. Many people, they have a kind of hysterical reaction and think that that will stop the inevitable, but it doesn't make any difference. We need to really understand the trends and understand that these trends are, to a large extent, because of karma. In most respects, the difficulties that we have to face are the long-term consequences of bad choices that we have made some time ago. Dealing with things that you are scared about is very essential, very important. In Raj Yoga, we talk about the power to face, and we also talk about the power to withdraw, which is an interesting power. The power to withdraw is symbolized by a tortoise who retracts his legs, head and tail into his shell. And it tells us that there's a time to expand yourself and do all kinds of growth and expansion and so on. And there's another time where you have to consolidate and focus in upon yourself and consolidate your resources, simplify your life, because I think it's inevitable that coming times will be full of increasing challenges, less support than we may have enjoyed in the past or even now in the present, because big things are breaking down, like healthcare system. There are shortages of medicines that are essential. The fragility of the fabric of our civilization is just not recognized. And we assume it's always going to be there, but it isn't.
When you face these questions and you think about them, how does one prevent oneself from not becoming worried? What will become of me? What will happen to my children? What am I going to leave to my grandchildren? What about my friends? What about my business?
What about me?
Yeah, in all of that.
In this question of spirituality, what you do in this case of the inevitable that doesn't have a solution and that you cannot figure out, you have to see that in how you have cultivated your relationship with God, you can put yourself in the hands of God and decide not to worry, because if you have done everything that you had to do in a proper way, that's the best you could do. The rest in God's hands. This is a leap of faith for many. For those who have a very close and good connection, you would have already had many experiences of how, when there is a critical time, you get carried across it with relative ease, and so you recognize that this kind of insurance policy that you have created for yourself is real. If you worry about something, it doesn't change anything, except for you get weaker. That's the only thing it does. So you need to know that, and you need to make a personal policy that there's no point in worrying. It doesn't get you anywhere. So let it be. You have to have a balance of doing whatever you had to do with responsibility, and then the rest, you put your hands up, or you put yourself in God's hands. Your children, your grandchildren, they're equally in God's hands. This is also why I think simplifying your life at this time is good. You don't have too many people, too many things, too many responsibilities. You can manage it.
Simplicity. I'd like more details on why this is important. It's not a very commonly thought of virtue, but from what you just said, it appears to be one. How will simplicity help us in times to come?
I think the word simplicity is not very easy for people to really relate to, but simplifying your life has a descriptive feel about it that is more readily available. Simplify your stuff, just keep what you need. Otherwise people have a habit of extra this and extra that and extra the other. You need to have a stock of what may be short. Like you need backup food, backup water, backup medicine, because anytime these things may not available, but excess plastic bags, excess this, that, so many things people have excess of. You buy something, you never use it, give it away, or find a way to clear the space, because the more baggage you have, the more heavy it is for you to carry it around. Simplify your mind. Simplify your obligations and duties. I think also simplify the way you project yourself into the world. You know, sometimes people want to create big impression, this, that, and they need lots of backup stuff to support that. No, this is not the time for that. It's the time to consolidate, to simplify, to make sure that the things that you're doing are meaningful, and that they mean something to you, and that they mean something in and of themselves. Be choosy, be selective, take care of yourself. If you look after yourself, that's preventative medical care.
That is so true.
Many different ways of simplifying your relationships, simplifying your obligations, social obligations, so that you have time and energy at your disposal.
It is within human nature to want to control aspects of our lives. As many aspects of our lives that we can control, we do control, because it gives us a sense of power, a sense of knowing what's about to happen. But those things that you mentioned at the beginning of today's episode are not within our control, is it? How does one make peace with that? You see, Sister Denise, what you shared in today's episode, well, it can't possibly be news to anyone, okay? It's just that we shy away from the subject because it's painful and because it makes us feel vulnerable. Balance and sensible approach.
Yeah, balance and sensible, and also facing, you see. We don't like to feel vulnerable, but we are vulnerable and we have to face it. And just avoiding it might take away the feeling, but it's not going to take away the fact.
So there's a difference between the fact and the feeling.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And people give greater credibility to the feeling than the facts. But actually the facts are much more reliable than the feeling.
Sure. That line is applicable to every single aspect of our lives, I guess.
Well, when you're really down to earth and realistic, you have to deal with the facts. You know, and the fact is, if you're not working, where are you going to get your money from? If you're not looking for work, if you're not developing skill sets, if you're not being creative, you're not being responsible, you see. If you are neglecting your health, then you're going to pay for it sooner or later. It is inevitable. So really look at the trends, look at your situation, and project yourself forward a reasonable number of years and see, can you make it if you keep on going like this?
Mm.
And if not, what adjustments can you make so that you can? And then are you assigning enough time to develop your spiritual resilience, because you are going to need it. And if you don't have it at the time of need, where are you going to get it from?
What are the building blocks of spiritual resilience?
You need to have a regular, sustainable meditation practice every day, every day, every day.
And that does what for the soul?
It gives you the energy that allows you to handle that day's challenges. And if you do a little more than that, it gives you a stock. You see, because the time will come when the challenge may be a little greater than your capacity, but if you have a stock, you can move into that stock and apply it.
Yeah, you see, when it comes to that aspect, many individuals say, I'm too busy, I do not have time, when I sit for meditation, I cannot concentrate, and so forth and so forth. So you are saying what?
If you get made redundant at work, which is happening left and right, you can't say, oh, I don't have time for this. Who's going to listen? And then you're going to say, oh, I can't handle it. But if you had built up your spiritual resilience, then you would be able to handle it. And you would also see it coming from some time in advance, and you would take measures to take care of yourself behind it, you see. Going around with your eyes shut or acting like an ostrich and putting your head in the sand, this is the problem.
Yeah, it's just that the subject is painful for many.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, we covered that already, didn't we?
We did.
Okay, so how does the Supreme Soul assist or help or provide for us in a situation like this?
I think very specifically and very especially, the Supreme Soul is saying, you know, we are in a time where the cycle of the world is changing. It's a very, very big time of change. And whatever is civilization as we know is gradually falling away, and some new kind of civilization is beginning to emerge, because this one can't carry on much longer like this. It's really frittering itself away. And so we need to sort of shift our energy away from the old, which is falling apart, and invest in the new. And we have to really think about what do we want? What do we not need from the old? What is the meaning of shifting from one civilization to another? What does it mean socially, politically, economically, spiritually, aesthetically, in all the different ways? And the civilization we live in at the moment is based on materialism. And materialism has created a situation where we have sort of self-destructed.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
The way the resources of the earth are used to excess and wasted means that the resources of the earth are finishing and they can't renew themselves. So we have finished up non-renewable resources. We have done things to the oceans, to the air, to the earth, etc., in ways that have killed it. And the population has not reduced. But the resources are pretty much finished, and then what? And people who are in control of the resources say, well, you know, we just need to make money and the rest doesn't matter. But karmically, it's going to come in your face, you know, and you'll say one day, oh yeah, it did matter, but it's too late because I already messed up everything. So we need to be have a very different relationship with other human beings who are valuable. We need a relationship with the earth, with the environment. We need a relationship with God. We need to think about what our values are. And we need to realize that the way we're going at the moment is self-destructive course. And why are we doing that? Don't have to.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of today's episode. So I'd just like to recap for our viewers, because today's topic is pretty heavy. What would you say is a healthy attitude towards these major eventualities in one's life? How would you define a healthy attitude?
A healthy attitude, I would say, is to recognize the trends and see where they're going and accept that this is where we're headed. And in the face of that, simplifying your life is a very important ingredient. Building yourself up spiritually, a very important ingredient. Preparing yourself for the worst is a good idea. And being open to the best at the same time is a very good idea. I maintain always a spirit of great optimism, because even through a change that involves the collapse of things that don't work, you've also got the emergence of things that do work, and you need to invest in those.
And why are you so sure about the latter when it's not visible?
It's not visible if you look at things with two eyes, which are a bit out of focus. But if you look at certain other things, certain energies that are emerging, this power of spirituality that's emerging, the possibility of technology being used well to carry us forward to a highly civilized world, the presence of God and what that does to change how people feel about existence. There are many quite intangible things, but if you're sensitive, you can feel them strongly. People who can't feel them strongly, we have this group of people who are, they're protesting against extinction.
Yes, extinction rebellion.
You can't rebel against extinction.
I did find the name quite interesting.
Yes. It happens. Scientists have told us every so often the circumstances of the world get to a point where there is mass extinction of life on the planet. But it doesn't mean the end. It just means the end of how it was for these people at this time. When you know that you're a soul, my body can get extinguished, but I can't. And if you cannot be extinguished, and the planet can go through different phases, but it cannot be extinguished, then it has to renew. So this is a time of regeneration, renewal. Press the reset button.
Where does your faith come from in what you just said, Sister Denise? You speak with such certainty.
Well, I think it comes from study, from calculation, from sensitivity, from really going into the depth of what does it mean to be an inextinguishable, immortal being of light who has a relationship with this wonderful planet and this wonderful set of people called humanity, and this wonderful being called the one who knows everything, And it's people who don't know, who are reacting to symptoms that they interpret in their way, who get into a panic. I don't feel any panic. I don't feel, I'm not afraid of death.
And most people are.
You face it a few times, you realize that you're greater than it.
Okay, so, wow. Okay, so thank you. There you go. Attitudes towards the inevitable. Today's topic was somewhat serious, but I think necessary to listen to and understand. And here we have the churnings of the one who has been spending a large part of her life with God and drawing on His power. And she has shared with us what it means to face life's tough questions. So thank you for joining us, Sister Denise, sharing your wisdom. Thank you at home for spending your half an hour with us. We do hope that today's episode has been of some meaning to you. Take care and goodbye.